My name's Andrew Willans. I'm a design director from Sumo Digital.
So let's start by talking a little about this backdrop here in Croatia and what's it like for you as a game developer to come and be able to speak to game developers in a location like this.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places I've been to for a conference ever. It blew me out the water, I'll be honest, because you're used to things like E3 and Gamescom, but this, when we arrived, seeing those views, I was like, yeah, this is a good place to do business. And I've got to be very careful about what photos I send home. So I'm saying to my wife, I'm working really, really hard. Look at the backdrop. It's amazing.
The game industry is truly global. Talk a little about the audience here and what you're able to talk to them about.
Yeah, well, we've been meeting so many different people, and for Sumo ourselves, we're looking for outsourcing. We're looking for other studios to collaborate with on projects. So we're getting people from all over the world, which is something that's different to if you are in kind of America, it tends to be more North America style, maybe some from Europe, but here it just seems to cover absolutely everyone, which is great. And I'm getting to see games and meet people that I didn't know about, and it's just the way you are as a gamer. You kind of have your genres, the games that you love, and coming here just opens your eyes to just how much development's going on in Poland and Croatia. Like speaking to Croatian devs, that's just incredible.
When it comes to your own career, you've worked on a lot of really big games. What's it like to see the indie developers like they have all over the place here?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, for all, I've done a lot of AAA games. One of the games closest to my heart was Grow Home, which was a really small scale kind of indie feel game that I did when we were at Ubisoft. And so, yeah, I recognize a lot of those challenges when you're working with a tiny team with a small budget. And yeah, it's highly creative, and that's the beauty of it. You walk around and you see all of the guys and girls demoing on the TVs, and you're walking past going, holy shit, that looks awesome. So, queuing up, I feel like a kid myself, I'm like queuing up to play all of these different games, and obviously making a note for the ones that I want when I get home to download on Steam. But yeah, it's amazing. Such a diverse range of games and people. It's cool.
Can you talk a little about Newcastle and how things are going over there since the transition?
Yeah, it's absolutely superb. So, we transferred over from CCP Newcastle at the start of the year, bought by Sumo, and they bought the entire dev studio. So, we're around about 35 people, basically, and it's a really tight-knit team. We'd worked on Valkyrie for probably about 2.5 years, 3 years in total, and all of the people in that studio have worked together. They've got 30 years experience, some of them really talented team, but also a tight-knit family. So we were really concerned. We didn't want anyone to leave because we wanted to build the family rather than lose it. So Sumo was fantastic. It was it was the right person to arrive at exactly the right time, and so yeah, we've got to start the year with really exciting projects on the table. Lots more on the horizon, which unfortunately I can't talk about yet, but look forward to sharing when the time's right.
How do you feel the work you guys did in virtual reality, a brand new medium, will translate back when you're creating games for traditional?
Yeah, all of those skills are still there, because I think everyone within the virtual reality kind of development had come from traditional games anyway, so it doesn't take much to swap hats back. And to be honest, a lot of the design methodologies that we used for VR are the same as doing non-VR games. You just have to be more aware of things like player comfort and play session times, so you couldn't have someone in a mission which takes an hour, that's kind of locking them in for a too long a period of time. So you've got to allow natural breaks within the gameplay. So there's a couple of things that you need to consider. And UI in VR, that's a minefield. So anyone who's doing any kind of UI, any UX systems, have a look online. There's loads of best practices out there, Gamma Sutra articles, so people are sharing all of the knowledge that they've built up in VR, which it's a cool thing because it's got that indie vibe, right? Because everyone's experimenting, and it just takes one person to have that breakthrough and suddenly, share it, and everyone's one step further to something a place where we all want to be. Because I still have, utter belief in VR that it's going to be a huge part of the future of games. It's going to be slower than we all predicted. It's not going to happen overnight.
And that's one of the next thing I was going to ask you. Obviously, Valkyrie is extremely well received. A lot of people said it's one of the best VR games that was out there. Having worked on that game, how do you see the future of VR playing out?
I think it's bizarre because the gamer inside me wants like an omnidirectional treadmill, right? So if I can solve bipedal movement and I'm running around with my gun in Battlefield for real in VR, that would be a tremendously amazing thing, Ready Player One style, right? But it's not quite there yet. I've not seen consumer-friendly hardware that could deliver that experience at this stage. So that could happen. But also the other side of things, which is far more achievable, is that people start making games that are tailored more to the strengths of the hardware. So like when mobile phones came out, everyone wanted like a virtual joystick to control a character, and it doesn't work because there's no tactile input there. So it became really common once people discovered that if you swipe, it's a really cool way to interact with a screen. Like games like Infinity Blade, that was a really cool way to interact with the screen, to do combat with something that's intuitive. And so I think that games that kind of play more to the strengths of VR, to do with the movement of the head and the hands now, they're going to be the ones that will be the most successful, basically. And that's probably going to push it in a different direction, where they'll offer an experience which is different to traditional games, but, complementary, hopefully. And who knows? I mean, who knows what's going to happen next year? Because it's like everyone's really guarded with the hardware, so we could go to GDC next year, and then I could be proved wrong. The Omni treadmill could arrive, sponsored by Sony, and I'll be like, woohoo! Ready Player One, it's arrived.
At the same time that there was a lot of hype building up with VR, augmented or mixed reality kind of came out of the blue. What are your thoughts, even though that's still very early, about that technology?
That's insane. I mean, because that will have application in everyday life, and that's something which I think it'll help it gain a lot of ground really quickly. Can you imagine doing a conf call where you've got holograms of the people you're talking to sat around you at a table, but it's your table in your office? I mean, yeah, that's proper Star Trek shit right there. That sounds incredibly exciting. But I like what they're doing. Microsoft kind of started calling it mixed reality, started referring to it as mixed reality, and that's sort of what it is really. AR, VR, it's all just a different way of seeing the world through a lens.
One of the things we touched upon earlier on was, this Croatia. I want to get your thoughts on game development coming from England. Is there anything in particular from that culturally that you feel impacts the games that are made out of Newcastle?
There's definitely some tongue-in-cheek humor. There's probably some British humor in the stuff that we do. I think we're as guilty as being influenced by Hollywood as everyone else. So we do like our action genre. We like our fast cars. So yeah, I think. I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, go back to Grow Home. I mean, when we did Grow Home, when we were doing the cutscenes, we didn't have a big budget. So we did all of the cutscenes with like text and ASCII art. So when you completed the game, there's this really shitty firework display drawn out with ASCII art, and it's that kind of tongue-in-cheek British humor, a little bit self-deprecating, and I think that comes across in a lot of the games. And when you look at games like Sea of Thieves, that's uniquely rare. Aside from the chickens, it's got that tone. It's that. Off-kilter British humor to it.
What excites you about game development today, especially with the new company?
Well, with Sumo, it's the huge range of games that we've got on our plate at the minute. So it's a bit like being a kid in a sweet shop. So I'll be in a meeting and we're talking about all of these games that are either in production, about to go into production, or on the horizon. And yeah, I mean, I can't talk about them, but obviously I can just wear a broad smile and say it's like being a kid in a sweet shop. Watch this space.
And you guys were at the Unreal Engine stage, but in general, what role do you see video game engine technology playing in allowing quicker development cycles and everything from indie to the AAA? Yeah,
huge role. I mean, the more you can kind of get stuff out of the box, to get you up and running with a prototype, the better. So Unity, Unreal, there's many engines out there now which are putting the power back in the hands of kind of designers, where you don't have to have necessarily a coding background to get something up and running, to get a gym together, to look at the movements of an avatar in a world, to look at the way that you behave and interact with that world, and start, just playing with toys in a white box gym and working out where the fun is. So I think, yeah, game engines, yeah, the more that they can put in the hands of people without the jargon, the better. You know, I can deal with logic boxes. I could do that. That's about as far as I go. And if it's not a logic box, if it's not like really basic visual scripting, I'm out of my depth, and I have to call in a programmer and then just spell it out with drawings and descriptions. But I think that's true of a lot of, like, you know, older game designers. You know, the younger game designers that are coming out of college now. They've got a lot more technical skills, which is it's a really good thing to have.
When it comes to creating games today, how do trends like the fact that more people watch people play video games than play video games today, and the Twitch phenomenon, impact the development of games?
Yeah, I mean, it's now started to factor into the very early stages of development. So when you're looking at the toy, before you even start solidifying a concept, you're also in the back of your mind thinking, how is this streamable or watchable? You know, in what way can this engage with people beyond just the player? So yeah, it's all the way down to there. I mean, it's a trend that I think it's going to be here to stay. Unlike something like, you know, hero shooters were all the rage in 2016, 2017, and now it's the turn of battle royale, which is cool. You know, I mean, it's great to be developing things and on touch with trend, but you've got to realize that with development, it takes so long to get a game in a state where you want to release it that you might be arriving late to a very overcrowded party, and unless you've got some kind of secret sauce to make you stand out, you know, you're not going to make it. Not against the likes of the, you know, the big boys which have been there and hoovered up all of the players.
One of the other trend that ties into both of those things, both the battle royale genre and watching, is esports. How does that impact you as a game developer?
Yes, I mean, we touched on esports quite a lot with Valkyrie, because we always considered that like the perfect esport. And the thing about esports, I think I've said this a few times really, is it's arrogant to kind of make a game for esports, but esports finds you. You know, so you need to find your audience, you need to have compelling content, you need to have that knife-edge gameplay where the match could go one way or another, you know, on the last second on the clock, and everyone's cheering and the crowd's pumping. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing, but I don't think you should design a game just with esports in mind. You know, make a great game and let it find you.